What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and whatever time it is. Welcome back to yet another video with your man, Immersionholic. And ladies and gentlemen, today we're talking about the future of Divided Impera for Rome 2. Just recently, the revised Grand Campaign Beta submod was released by the DEI modding team, and this is basically a submod that allows people to come in and test upcoming and brand new features to the mod. This is super exciting, especially if you're a long-term DEI player, because it shows us not just new features and whatnot that are actually coming to the mod, but it shows us the idea and the things that are being targeted by the DEI modding team themselves, so it gives us basically an idea of what to expect in the future. So today in this video, I'll be talking about some of the highlights of this submod, what they mean for the game going forward, and then we'll give some closing thoughts on the new features, and of course, I would love to talk to you guys more about what you would like to see in DEI. But first off, let's get started covering exactly what is new. So first off, we have new building slots. Every region now has either 4 or 6 slots available. So just to clarify, each region is actually a city and its surrounding area. So every single city in the game now has either 4 or 6 total building slots. Moving forward though, we have new starting buildings, updated and added various new starting buildings. So a lot of the cities actually have buildings now, whereas before, many cities, in fact most of them, started off with just their main city, a port maybe, and then like one other building inside they're already built for you. But now you actually have things already built, which actually makes sense. Because these cities did not just pop up out of nowhere all at the same time. They've grown over time, and so this really makes sense and adds an extra layer of, dare I say, immersion. But then we have new wonder buildings added to the game. Very, very interesting. All new wonder buildings. We'll talk a little bit more about that soon. We also have the return of the Roman families. Rome's political parties are now the families again. So before, we had the patriciate, nobles, and the equites. So now it's changed back to having families take over Rome. For example, you have the Julii family that you can choose to play as, and they will be your main characters throughout that playthrough. And you'll also, while you're playing as them, have the other families that will be a part of your faction as well. So that will be really interesting. You basically get to have that extra layer of drama, possibly, between all of the new Roman families that are now back, just like they were back in the olden Roman days. We also have the new culture added, which is the Numidian culture. This is, of course, found in Western Africa, or Numidia. So that will be interesting, and it'll be very interesting to see how Carthage can handle that new culture being added into its provinces. But anyway, moving forward, we have new starting characters and family trees, so new royal families and historical characters. This is a biggie, ladies and gentlemen. This is very cool. I'm really looking forward to getting into more in-depth with that. But anyway, let's continue reading the list. We have new starting diplomacy and situations, so lots of new situations for starting factions. This is a game changer as well. I can't wait to talk more about it. But anyway, I need to shut up. Let's keep reading the list. And now we also have new secession factions. Very interesting. Going to be fun to see what kind of new factions have been added. We then have better early AI recruitment. All factions now start with a barracks for improved recruitment. This is also true if you choose to play as that faction, but you can dismantle the barrack building if you like. But basically, every single capital of every faction in the game now starts off with a barrack, so the AI doesn't have to waste time building up a barrack. Instead, they can instantly start recruiting units, and so they won't be starting off with low tier militia armies. And then we have the final point, which is going to be very, very interesting to see over a long period of time, especially, is that there is extra modability being added to the mod, because the start position kit files are now available on the Total War Center submod forum. So for you submodders out there, you love to create submods for DEI, make sure you go check that out on the Total War Center. But anyway, now let's choose out a few of these really cool features and talk about them in a little bit greater detail. So first off, in my opinion, one of the most fun and most immersive features that they've added is increasing historical families, or basically adding them to the game. Because before, the majority of factions did not really have historical characters. They had characters that were supposed to be fitting to the era, but they often didn't align up very well. And I did notice that there was some complaints by people that they weren't able to play as specific kings or leaders that they wanted to, which is understandable, especially for the factions that kind of get left behind a little bit more in mainstream media. For example, the Mauryaans have now been overhauled. When you play as India, aka the Mauryaans, you now do not get to choose between 3 political parties. Instead, you only get to choose one. You start playing it, and you are the Mauryan dynasty, or the Maurya dynasty is what it says in game. But you have the historical king Bindusura. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that perfectly. But he is the king. But then you also have 3 sons of his. One of his sons is Susima. Then you have Vitashoka. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that perfectly. But then you have the Ashoka prince. I mean, all 3 of these guys are princes. One of them is already dead at the beginning, though, which is Susima. So now you have Bindusura, who is your king. He's 50 years old, though. Not too much longer left for him. And then we also have Ashoka, which is the Ashoka known for ruling India during this time period, which is very exciting. I'm sure many of you Mauryan players will be super hyped about this. But this isn't just for a few factions, this is for a lot of factions. For example, you Ptolemy followers out there, you will love this update because we have Ptolemy II currently ruling Egypt, but then he has 3 children. He has Ptolemy III, Berenice, and Lysimachus. And Lysimachus is actually already designated as his heir, which is interesting, even though he's younger than Ptolemy III. Not sure if that's intentional, but either way, very, very interesting to see historical characters coming into play. So you Ptolemy lovers will definitely love that. And then furthermore, to get your Diadochi blood running, the Macedonians have also had their family tree overhauled. So you not only do you see your current leader, which is Antigonus II, which is pretty badass, but you see his father and his father before him. So he is the son of Demetrius, who was the son of Antigonus I. Very, very cool to see those family trees being updated. I will be providing a few before and after screenshots of these family trees, just so you get an idea of how much have been changed. I'm not sure if it's every single faction in the game or just the majority, but every faction I checked out had a brand new family tree. This goes from the Lusitani to the Iceni, to Syracuse, to Egypt, Macedonia, India. So that's very, very cool. And I'm really looking forward to creating more immersive and historically based campaigns because, I mean, I'm sure 99% of you play this game and this mod because you love history, right? And so now we can get even more immersed playing as the historical families of many, if not all, of these playable factions, which is super cool. But anyway, moving on from that feature, we have the new Wonder Buildings. Now this is a biggie in my opinion. This is really, really cool, and you'll see it basically spread out across the entire campaign map. One of the best ways to see it is if you play as Egypt. You'll see the Lighthouse of Alexandria, which takes up a building slot in the city of Alexandria itself. Plus, you also have the pyramids at Giza, which are taking up a building slot in the city of Memphis for you, which is very, very cool. They all have their own buffs as well, so you can right-click on those buildings and check them out yourself. I will be providing some screenshots, but I won't go into extreme detail here. That's for you guys to discover and have fun on your own with. But then I did notice that we also have other wonder buildings. For example, you have Babylon in where Babylon was. You also have Stonehenge, which takes up a building slot up in Britain as well. So we're seeing wonders appear all over the friggin' map, which is very, very cool. I'm looking forward to see what else they've added for the time period. And then the last feature I'm going to go into a little bit more depth about is the new starting diplomacy situations. This is massive in my opinion because even though it seems like a small change, it can alter the trajectory of an entire grand campaign. Let me give you a perfect example. Macedon. Macedon was typically a fairly difficult campaign early on. They start off with literally no diplomatic relations, and they often get attacked by every friggin' body all at once. So within the first 10 turns, you usually know if you've lost Macedon, or if you can do well in the campaign or not. However, with this submod, which will be added in a future update by the way, this submod will be added, and it will become a main part of DEI, Macedon actually starts off with Sparta being a defensive ally and Athens being a client state. Isn't that massive? That is insane to me. Not only that, but they're also at war with another faction to the northeast, which I believe is a Celtic faction. Probably one of the Celtic factions that migrated during the big Celtic migration. But anyway, they're coming in from the northeast, so it kind of pushes you towards fighting the barbarians like the Macedonians had to at this time, while they still have hegemony over the smaller Greek city-states like Sparta and Athens. So that changes the entire campaign for Macedon, in my opinion. As far as I could tell, there isn't any scripts that cause these factions to revolt or anything just yet. We might see that in the future, who knows? That would be very cool. But right now, the Macedonian start has been basically entirely altered just based off these small and fairly minor diplomatic changes, which is really exciting to me. And that's the only one I'm going to get in depth about. There are a lot more changes that have happened, and I hope to see even more happen. But that's the only one I really wanted to get in detail about, because Macedon is such a notorious campaign for being very difficult, and basically within the first 5 to 10 turns you know if you've won or lost that campaign. And that's why, in my opinion, those 3 factions, the new wonder buildings, the addition of historical families, and the new diplomacy starting situations, that is big in my opinion. All of these features add extra immersion, which you know I'm all about, and they all make sense, which is probably the most important thing. Do these changes make sense to the game for the gameplay? And in my opinion, we're seeing some perfect additions that are coming in across the entire board. So now, what does this mean for DEI moving forward? Well, looking just based off this somewhat at pure face value, it seems like the DEI team is looking to overhaul the entire Grand Campaign experience. Obviously, you have armies, you have cities, you conquer different factions whenever you like, and respond to different threats, how you do in Total War games. However, seeing all of these new additions come in, it shows that we're looking to see more historical accuracy being added to the mod. Plus, potentially, we'll be seeing even more political intrigue happen. For example, we now have more factions that are allied or client-stated by others, so that adds in another layer of diplomacy that all of those factions have to deal with. Could you imagine playing as Athens and then trying to have to revolt against the Macedonian hegemony, but then the Spartans actually stay loyal to the Macedonians and try to help keep the Athenians under control? That would be a really fun campaign. And in my opinion, this somewhat is a really exciting thing, a really interesting insight into what's to come, because it shows that we're looking at getting more immersion added to the mod, which is where it's at, of course. We always need more immersion, but we're also getting different aspects of gameplay in that aren't massive. They aren't overhauling the entire game, but they are giving you a brand new experience. So that is really, really exciting, and I'm really can't wait to see what else is coming in future updates. As always, I will cover changes that do happen, so if you do want to find out what's happening with DEI, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Feel free to join our Discord that is listed down below. But ladies and gentlemen, please comment down below what you yourself would love to see added to the game to try and increase immersion, historical accuracy, or just pure enjoyment. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one.